Chris.
Yes. Hey.
Horahan, did I get it right?
Howerhan.
Howerhan, okay. Sorry about that. And you're calling from the, well, maybe I shouldn't say your area code. You have a good question.
Yes. I am coming from, I think, a bit of a different perspective than some of the other people you've had on your show. I'm an employee at a small startup company here. We're about 6 to 7 people strong. And I'm more in, it's not a tech company, but I'm coming from the position of, I guess, what would be considered a developer. But recently, I've fundamentally disagreed with a project or a strategic initiative that the CEO, the founder, has come up with and sort of wants to push us forward with. So my question is, how do I, as someone that's not in the co-founder type role, deal with this? I've explained why I disagree, but things still sort of continue to press forward.
It's a tough situation because it's not your ship, right?
Right.
You're a shipmate, you're a soldier, and there's a general. That's the dynamic. And if the general wants to take that hill, your job is to give him as much advice as you can. If you think everybody's going to get shot going up that hill, got to say it. But if at the end of the day, he says, we're taking that hill, you take the hill. And it sounds like you did a good job of explaining it to him or her. And, you know, if there's going to be a mutiny, you know, are there other people in the company who agree with your position or are fundamentally opposed to what the person's doing, or is it just you?
No. So my direct boss, I don't think he's in the position of being like a co-founder, but he's more at the executive level, and he agrees with my position as well.
Right. So then what you could do is, you know, now the guy who's the CEO, he's going to be very defensive. Because as a CEO, all you do is deal with problems. And a lot of times, the people who are working for you, they may have great insights, but they may not see the big picture. And this is very common in startup companies. There's a difference of opinion. Sometimes the boss is right. Sometimes the employees are right. What I always tell my guys is, tell me. Fight hard for your positions. If it's an enlightened boss, he's going to want independent, critical thinkers working for him who fight for their position. And I let people fight for their position, and then I ask people to switch roles and negotiate, you know, pretend they're the other side. So if one person says we should be a business-to-business company, one person says we should really be a B2C company, then I say, okay, now switch sides and negotiate the other one. And then I take a whiteboard out and I say, here are the pros, here are the cons. And I sort of take an agnostic role to it, which is, let's, you know, handicap the percentage chances of each thing working. In some cases, both ideas will work. And it's not a binary thing. It's not a zero-sum game. There could be a company like Microsoft. Should we be doing a video game? I think we should be doing video games. I think we should be doing an MP3 player. I think we should be doing a search engine. You know, I think we should be, you know, they may have 20 ideas, and you know what? All 20 might work, or 18 might work, or 15 might work. And then there's all different ways to execute them. So there's like, is the idea a good idea? And then there's tactics. Is it a good tactic or method for getting there? I think you have to get your boss, sit down with them, and say, I just want to really think this through, not because I'm convinced my idea is right or that your idea is wrong. I just want to make sure that we've really explored it and we don't get caught with our pants down. We don't get caught in a position where we're weak and we make a mistake. So can we just go through this one more time? And I'm sorry if I'm being thick. I'm sorry if I don't get it. But I just care so much about the company that I don't want us to make a mistake. And I see this opportunity and I can't sleep. I keep thinking about it. So would you mind if we just talked about it for another 20 minutes? I know you're probably busy. If anybody came to me in my company with that position, you know what I'm going to say? Of course, let's talk about it. I don't want to be a jerk. And if you feel that strongly about it, I want to hear that. And if he doesn't respond well to that, then you know what? You shouldn't be working for him. He's a clown. If he doesn't, you know, but it depends on how you present it. You sound like you sound a little bit, to be honest, a little bit entrenched in your position. You seem pretty convinced that you've got the right idea. And whenever I hear that, that gets me a little nervous. If you're too strong in your position, he's too strong in his, maybe people are not listening to each other enough. You know, maybe you guys need to argue the other side together. Maybe you could say, I can see your point of view. Here's where I agree with you. You know, this is virtuous. This is a great part of your idea. but you may not have the right culture there where people feel like they can speak up or not. Is that any of that resonating?
We don't have the culture where we don't feel like we can speak up. I think everyone pretty much speaks their mind pretty regularly. But your point of me being a little entrenched in my idea and then he and his idea, I think is pretty true. And being able to have a discussion where we could look through each other's eyes, so to speak, and see the other position and try to see the pros and cons there. I think that would be pretty good.
Yeah, and maybe get some other people involved in the conversation and say, hey, maybe can we have everybody write down on a piece of paper, which I did this in my company once, I've actually done this a couple of times. I have everybody write on a piece of paper, how long do we think it's going to take to accomplish this? Or of these 3 ideas, which do you think is the best idea for us to pursue now? Or rank these 3 ideas, and then I turn over all the pieces of paper, I read the person's name, and I read their vote out loud. And then I put them in stacks. And then me as the CEO, I can't influence that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if I think I'm actually going to influence it, I could tell them to leave their names off. So if he's a good leader, he wouldn't have a problem with you doing that. You could say, hey, can we put this up to a vote? I mean, obviously you're going to make the final decision, but wouldn't you like to get everybody's feelings on this anonymously as to what they're thinking? And if he's an enlightened guy, he might go for it. And you might wind up finding out from your coworkers that they're 6-2 against you. And that might be enlightening for you too. Mm-hmm. Maybe your position's not right, and so that's something you got to consider. Don, what do you think?
Well, startups are very dynamic, and things change all the time. And typically, startups have 3 or 4 strategy changes, product direction changes. This is pretty typical, and you're always dealing with incomplete information. Nobody knows what the right answer is. If the answer was obvious, then everyone would be doing it. The truth is, you don't know. You have to try. And it's sort of like marriage. Listening to Jason here, I thought, well, this could easily be a marriage discussion, because I don't agree with my wife on every single thing, but I'm not going to divorce her over one thing.
Right.
Right? I mean, so you got to ask yourself.
5 things?
Is this a bet the business kind of decision where if you're wrong, you're dead? Right. If it is, then you need to really have this discussion.
Right.
If it's a strategy thing or a product direction thing, that you can try it, and if it doesn't work, come back and do something else.
That's a very good point, Don. I think it's an astute point. Chris, there's nothing that says you can't try his idea first, and since he's the boss, he got there somehow, like you're not the boss. He did get there somehow. You did go to work for this guy. You must have some level of respect for him. So maybe the agreement you can come to is we're going to try this and monitor it. And I'll say that to my people sometimes. I know people may disagree with this. We have a 60-40 split. We're going to try this. We'll monitor it. If it's not working, we'll change it. And so maybe in your discussion with him and the group, you can say, can we at least agree that the metric of success is going to be X and Y, and we're going to monitor it on a daily basis? I'm not trying to scuttle the project, but I'm not trying to sabotage it. I hope it works. And you can't try to go in there and sabotage it, because then you're going to be the Eeyore of the company, and nobody likes to work with an Eeyore, and the Eeyore eventually gets kicked out. Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh?
Yeah.
That's the person. We have a no Eeyore rule here. You can't have Eeyores at a startup because they just waste everybody's time. And so you don't want to put yourself in that position like I'm the Eeyore of the company. But you could say, what's the metric of success that we're going to, track this project against, and my project and my idea, and let's track it and see what happens. And maybe that would help the situation. But you're going to make mistakes, and so even if it doesn't work out, and if it turns out you do his idea and it doesn't work, then your position is you can't gloat. You got to be like, you know what? We tried, we learned, and now we're going to put that learning into the next thing. And that's the truth. That's what good startups do. You learn, you innovate, you evolve. Boom, 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 boom. Most startup companies do not end up where they started. Microsoft, perfect example. They were building programming languages, BASIC and compilers. Then they wound up in operating systems. Then they wound up in desktop servers, applications and servers, and what percentage of the business is, revenue is, basic programming kits and, whatever, any kind of programming. Tiny. So you're going to evolve, and I think you'll be fine. Do a little self-reflection about why your position is so strongly entrenched before you go into this, because I think that's something you're going to need to think about. Anytime I think I know exactly what to do, I get a little nervous, like maybe I'm a little high on my own supply. You ever see Scarface?
Yeah.
I mean, it says don't get high on your own supply.
Right.
you need to make sure that if why you're so entrenched in this position, does it benefit you for some reason, you know? So just be careful with that.
Okay.
Awesome. Great call.
Great, thanks.
Oh, hey, and you're invited to TechCrunch 50.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So hopefully you make it.
Yes,
okay, cheers.
yes, thanks.
You've been watching This Week in Startups. To watch the full episode, click here. To check out some other shows from This Week In, click here.